Welcome to the show. I'm Jan St. John. I'm here because I have been deeply touched by the stories of real women who are overcoming the odds. For years, I produced a program on radio called Women of Courage. And now we are taking a leap of faith and mustering up all of our courage to take this program to television. How can the worst thing that has ever happened to you become your greatest gift? How can our challenges catalyze positive change in our lives? And how can we take what we have learned and pass it along to others? Well, this television show is just one way to do that. We hope that you enjoy it and in the process discover how you too are a woman of courage. Janice Mirikitani was born in a World War II prisoner of war camp in Arkansas. Her journey from oppression to freedom began when her mother broke the silence and she moved to San Francisco's Glide Memorial Church, where she met and married Cecil Williams. Janice's latest anthology, Watch Out, We're Talking, features women who have survived incest. Her life is a tapestry of creativity and service. Janice Mirikitani, watch out, she's talking.
Thank you.
Oh, Janice, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today.
Thank you for having me.
I know how busy you
honor.
are.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Yes, yes. In fact, I heard from your secretary that you get about 37 offers a day.
Oh.
And I'm just thrilled that you accepted our invitation.
Thank you for being. Thank you for letting me be here.
Yes, yes, yes. Now, Janice, I know that one of the most important things that happened in your life was when your mother broke the silence.
Yes.
And how that impacted you in your own journey. Tell us about that.
Well, I was an infant, as you mentioned, in a World War II, I call them concentration camps. And I don't have any memory of the experience, but you know, my whole family was there, as were 120,000 other Japanese, mostly American citizens. And for 40 years, my mother kept her silence about that experience. And as I grew and became more active and curious about that experience, I asked her constantly to tell me about how she felt, what it was like, what it did to her. And she refused to speak about it. She would change the subject, or she would say, you know, shikata ga nai, which in Japanese means it can't be helped. Because the Japanese Americans, in my experience with my family, was that we had receded into ourselves. We had receded into a sense of shame about who we were, that we felt as Japanese, as Asians, as people of color, that we were not acceptable, that we were rejected by a society and a country where we indeed served. I mean, you know that the 442nd, which was the all-Japanese American regiment during World War II, was the most highly decorated. My mother in camp, and she told me this after she broke her silence, but in camp delivered mail, and she had to deliver mail to a family whose 5 sons were all killed in combat, fighting for the United States Army.
Wow. Now, that experience, Janice, gave you the courage then to speak out on your own behalf, did it not?
Well, she activated me.
Yeah.
It's like she opened up the wounds so that, and you know when you're carrying the wounds of racism within you, when you carry the wounds of unacceptableness within you, that those wounds have to be opened up, lanced, so to speak. And it was like her speaking was breaking the silence, opened and lanced those wounds so that I could begin to heal.
Yeah. You know, I heard Maya Angelou say at your church that courage is the most important virtue a woman can have.
Absolutely. I believe that also.
Yeah.
Because without courage you cannot love, is
Yes.
what she says. And without courage you cannot reach out, and without courage you cannot stand for justice. And I believe that women have it in our hearts, because we bear children, have it in our hearts to really, really seek justice. We are the ones who will stand for love. And so, you know, when we look at Kosovo and all of the starvation and all of the violence and hatred that is perpetrated in the world, you know, I think, well, what if the women were heads of state? What if the women were out there leading?
Yes.
That I believe we'd find other solutions that are more loving and just and righteous.
Yes, yes, yes.
So,
yes. Well, let's hope this let's hope this television show will rally them all.
well, I know they're there. I know that when we join together, all women of all colors, of all sexual orientations, of all ethnic persuasions, of all classes, that when we come together, there is no more powerful force than that.
Yeah.
So I really believe that that's where the hope is.
Yes.
It's really true.
Yeah.
There is so many women of courage in my life, in my history, women of courage in the lines, in our circles, who have taught me the beauty of being able to reveal who you are.
Yeah.
Because we are really each other's mirrors, aren't we?
Absolutely.
You know, when we talk about our experience, we talk about your experience.
Yeah.
And hopefully, when we do that, others can join that circle.
Yes, exactly. She was a blue-collar kid who learned to keep the spark alive, despite a lifetime of violence and abuse. Helen Grieco managed to rise above it all, and now she works for Women Everywhere as president of California's National Organization for Women, and as a self-defense teacher in San Francisco. Helen's advice to women everywhere is always the same: claim your feminine power. So tell me what happened when you were 5 years old, and it was your first act of courage, and you saw your dad beating up your mom.
You know, you look at your life and you say, was there meaning to this? Does it make sense? You know, they say hindsight's 20/20. And my very first memory on the planet was laying in bed, and I hear my father and mother fighting in the kitchen, and I'm praying, please God, have Daddy stop hitting Mommy. And I had this moment where I thought, you know, God's not coming, and I better get out there and help my mom. And I went out into the kitchen, and I didn't step into the kitchen because the violence in there. He was pounding her, and she started slipping down the wall. You know, I'm 5 years old, and I said, Daddy, stop hitting Mommy. And he turned around just astonished. Of course, they always think, you know, the kids don't know they're asleep or whatever. And he stopped. And I felt that was the first day in my life. I like to claim this. This was my first feminist act. You know,
Okay.
I stood up to Dad at 5, and I've been trying to stand up, you know, ever since.
Yeah. Well, you know, what's so amazing to me, Helen, is that you did that and took a stand. And I know your father didn't hurt you. He hurt your brothers and sisters.
I was very lucky. You know, you wonder why things happen. As you said, I trained like 6,000 women and girls in self-defense, and you hear the stories. And I was very fortunate. I see people as kind of like Swiss cheese, you know, there's these solid parts and then there's holes.
Yeah.
And so I did have a lot of assertiveness and a lot of wonderful things, and then I did get some very deep holes from the experience and lots that I had to recover from.
So tell me why it was that you got yourself into an abusive relationship. I mean, how could that happen after having been through what you've been through?
That's exactly what I was wondering. You know, when you see these things happen as a child and you think, I'm never going to grow up, I'm going to do it differently, I'm not going to do what, you know, Mom did. And indeed, I think the message we need to say to women is when you experience that kind of abuse and deprivation of poverty, that there's scars, that there's wounds. And this thing about repeating family patterns has a lot of truth to it. And so I had to kind of scratch and claw my way back, because from the violence, not only was I assertive, but I was also, as I said, wounded. So I got an eating disorder, which lasted for 25 years.
Wow.
I did drugs for 10 years. I didn't want to feel, I didn't want to be me. You know, and I wound up getting in abusive relationships. I think I was trying to get it right, you know, got involved in emotionally dysfunctional relationships, and then one night it turned violent. And it was one of the most humiliating days of my life, because my friends said to me, you know, the next day, you have two choices. If you stay, we're leaving. But if you want to come, we'll take you right now.
It's called tough love, isn't it?
It was tough love, but we went.
Yeah.
I went.
Was that the beginning of some kind of shift where, like, no more?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. It was the beginning of a lot of changes for me, and I began trying to find out what does it mean to be healthy.
Yeah.
And I realized, okay, I've got some problems.
Yeah.
And so I learned through alternative medicine about health, and I got involved in women's studies, and I got into therapy, and, you know, I was very fortunate. There was just a handful of very good women that mentored me.
And you got yourself elected to California's president of now. I mean, that's a pretty major leap. It's a quantum leap from where you started.
Yeah, I'm very proud of that.
Did you think you wouldn't have done that if you hadn't gone through what the hell that you've been through?
You know, you don't want to prescribe it to people like, have an abusive father, alcoholic family, go ahead and have an eating disorder for 25 years, but you know what? When it's over, you're going to be one hell of a woman. So I wouldn't really say, you know, but that's what happened. What happened was all these experiences and the spirit that I had, that I wanted a good life. You know, I mean, it just makes me sad thinking about it, that I wanted a good life. And I had to find my way there, and I have. I have, you know, my working now, I teach women's self-defense, my partner, my marriage to a wonderful man, and I just want women to know it's possible.
Yeah.
It's beyond possible. You can do it.
Born in Tennessee, Norma Jean McKeldin remembers the conversation back then. "They won't let me," is what she heard growing up. Over the years, she has changed that conversation and now lives in Oakland, speaking up and reaching out to women like herself. After a diagnosis of breast cancer, she found herself in a whole new profession, providing skin care and a healing touch at Norma Jean's The Beauty Studio. Her life is a testimony to faith in things unseen.
Thank you. Thank you. That
Hi,
was
Norma.
special.
Your life
Thank
is a
you.
testimony to faith in things unseen.
I would hope so.
Yeah,
I would hope so.
yeah. I always feel, Norma, when I'm with you, that I've sort of been touched by the hand of God or the hand of the goddess or something.
Oh.
I don't know what it is, but I think it's all the work you've done on your journey through breast
Oh,
cancer
Thank you.
and through meeting the challenges in your life.
Thank you so much.
Just extraordinary. So I know that when you were first diagnosed with breast cancer, you were really sick. You were really sick. You said you got out of bed just to rest.
Well, that was during the radiation treatment I had. I discovered a small lump on my breast, and it was about 16 years ago, 17 years ago, and they didn't. At that time, they were doing lumpectomies with radiation therapy if there was negative axillary sampling done. Well, I don't think that they expected me to be as sick as I was doing the radiation therapy. So there was no place for me to turn to get any kind of relief for just how drained I felt. I would get up out of the bed in the morning and sit on the side of the bed and just rest, just to go to the bathroom and rest.
And you know, 16 years ago, you didn't have a support community around this. You couldn't talk about it.
Oh, God.
How did you get through that one?
Well, it was horrible. I remember going to the American Cancer Society's recovery group and talking with other people who had cancer, and none of these people looked like the future that I was creating for myself. They were green and yellow, and they made lots of noise while they were breathing, and they had oxygen tanks
Scared
with
you.
them.
Scared you.
Me to death. Scared me to death. I couldn't go back.
Yeah.
So there was no one to talk to
Yeah.
about it. There was, I was alone except
well,
for
you
my
had
daughter.
Quincy. You had Quincy. You
I
had your
had
daughter
Quincy. Yes, I
So
had
how'd
Quincy.
she help you get through this?
Ah,
How old was she then?
Quincy was 15 then.
Wow.
And she was in the 11th grade. I'm so proud of her because she graduated from high school a year earlier with a 3.7 average. And she took me to my radiation treatment every day. And she had to worry about me because I was so depressed. And I felt like burning the house down.
Yeah.
So every day she came home from school and there was a house still standing.
She was glad it was still standing.
She felt
Wow,
lucky and blessed
wow,
that day.
wow.
Yes, yes. Yes, she did. She did. She did.
Now, Norma, I know that running Norma Jean's The Beauty Studio and giving facials and allowing women to receive your healing touch has been part of your own healing journey, your spiritual journey. So talk a little bit about that. You say that the face is a mirror, our mirror. And there's so much stress going on with women that you work to get rid of it all.
Yes, exactly. Your face, your eyes, they're the mirror. Your eyes are the window of your soul. Your face is the mirror of everything that happens to you in your life. It's not coincidental. So when you lay down on my table, we touch. I put my hands on you. There's so much healing power in just touch. And we've gotten so far away from that in our community.
We have.
That's the healing part, the non-sexual, safe touching.
Yes, yes.
That's missing. And sometimes that non-touching is what creates that God hold
Yes.
within us.
Yes.
And when you come to my shop, you get that whole feel.
Yeah. I've been to your shop. Your
Yeah.
shop is a cover for what you're really up to. And you're right. right, it gives women a permission to come in and allow themselves to be touched, because most of us don't.
That's right.
Most of us don't.
And then when people feel safe and you touch them and they feel comfortable, all the stuff that's happening seems to just pour out of your mouth, and it's in the room and it's out in the world and it's away from you.
Yeah.
It's not like it's of you.
Yeah.
It's there, and you get to see it, and you see it from a place that you've never seen it before.
Yeah.
I call it that God place.
Yeah. Well, I know you call your salon creating sacred space.
It's sacred.
Yeah.
It's a sacred,
sacred space.
We create a sacred space
Yeah.
for you to be safe in.
Yeah. Well, Norma, you are a walking, talking testimony to what it means to be a courageous woman. And I wondered if you had any closing words for women at home who are sick and can't get out of bed, who get up to rest, who feel that their life may be over. What can you say to them?
You know, the thing that got me through was this too shall pass. Knowing that tomorrow morning, this cancer, this affair, the abuse would be 24 hours behind me, and then it would be a week, and then it would be a month, and so on.
Yeah. Yeah. And here we are at the dawn of the 21st century, and
right.
you got your daughter and your son and your grandkids, and you're slowing down.
That's right.
You're slowing
That's
down.
right. And not only I want to say that I have you, someone who will step out and say, ladies, come. Here's a safe place for you to be, to talk about what's happened to you, to support other women on their life journey, on their path, finding their way. And nothing is so ugly that we can't talk about it and clean it up.
Yeah. Hallelujah, sister. Yeah. With passion and fierce joy, Pilar has been writing music and singing songs her whole life. Born in Mexico City, her girlhood was marred by danger and neglect. Although slated for stardom, Pilar stopped her singing career in order to heal and discover her true value and worth. Pilar's current CDs are Fierce Joy and A Rainbow of Friends, music that turns you on and lifts you up. Well, Pilar, thank you so much for being on Women of Courage today.
My pleasure.
Because you are one. You are one. So I want to know if it was true that in 1980 you were booked on the Johnny Carson show and you canceled. You just canceled your date on the Johnny Carson show. How could that happen? I mean, something inside of you said, I'm not ready to be a star? What happened?
I had, well, first of all, thank you.
Yeah.
I had done a showcase, a cabaret showcase in San Francisco, and on that Monday, on a Monday in March, and I had been in this showcase quite a few times and never won. And everybody kept saying it was like the Susan Lucci syndrome, you know, this time you're going to win.
Right.
And so I didn't win. And I remember even one of the Smothers Brothers walked up to me, I think it was Dickie, and said, God, I not think you should have won. And it just was so heart-wrenching.
Yeah.
It was the same with John Wasserman, who was an extraordinarily well-loved writer in the Bay Area. Had a column commenting on people, things, and places. And the week before he was supposed to come review me, he was killed in an accident on the Golden Gate Bridge.
No.
And then Gerald Nachman came to review me, and he didn't like me. So it was like message after message telling me,
Not ready?
no,
Not time?
you know, sorry, kid. So that night that I lost that thing, I came home and I just stayed up all night, and I walked along the wharf in Sausalito, and I heard a voice, and it said, Pilar, you have a lot of work to do. You'd better stop. So I woke up the next day, and I called my management and my band, and I said, I'm giving a month's notice.
And you canceled the Tonight Show?
And I said, cancel it.
Wow.
Yeah. And in some deep part of me, I understood exactly what I was doing. It was that I knew how to be a star, I knew how to be a performer, I knew how to be a muse, I knew how to feel my own ecstatic truth. But I didn't know how to be a person, and I didn't know how to receive love.
Yeah. Well, you say you went to bed for a year, you know, that you really needed to heal.
Yeah.
Take the hair out of your face.
Yeah.
And
I ate licorice,
you ate licorice for a year?
just made love, ate licorice,
That's
didn't
not
think
bad.
about makeup,
Yeah, yeah.
and didn't think about my career.
But you also had a lot of healing to do, too. You
I
had
had a
a
lot of
pretty,
healing.
pretty hard childhood.
Yeah.
And that was part of the reason you said, I can't be a star
No.
until I heal. I'd rather be whole than be a star.
Yeah. I figured that if I stopped and really went inside and healed the gaping wounds that were there, that didn't show when I sang.
Yeah, right.
Because of course they never show when you're fabulous. But when I was anything other than being fabulous, I was so filled with toxic icky that I couldn't understand why my life didn't work and
Yeah.
why I couldn't receive love and why everything got messed up. So I said I would rather risk never getting out in the world and having the joy and the pleasure and the honor of singing and being fabu. I would rather risk never having that and be a whole person.
Yeah.
And heal myself and find out if I could be a whole person and a kind person and someone who learned about love before she learned about ecstatic truth.
Yeah. So what did music do for you on your healing journey? I know that you've been singing all of your life. They couldn't shut you up when you were a kid. And you've gone on to write these phenomenal songs, and I call Pilar a soloist. S-O-U-L-O-I-S-T. So can you teach a person, I mean, the most fearful thing, talk about courage, is getting up in front of a room and then singing. Speaking is tough enough, but singing.
Well, if you can speak, you can sing. I mean, saying that only people who sing well are allowed to sing is like saying only pretty people are allowed to make love. You know, you can have great time and be unattractive. So you
Deborah Kelly says she was born with the capacity to love her body, just the way it is. Diagnosed with Klippefeil at birth, she also has Springles and scoliosis. But her dad thought she was gorgeous, and so she is. Deborah works as a career coach, and soon she'll be opening up her own store for sensual and sexual accessories called Pleasures of the Heart. She has 2 perfect children and a granddaughter who is already learning about self-acceptance and courage from an expert. Deborah Kelly. Oh, Deborah. You are the person I think of most often when I look in the mirror and I don't like the way my nose looks, or I don't like the way my jowls are growing and all that stuff. And then I think about all the times that you said, put me on your shoulder.
Yeah.
Just put me on your shoulder and then get off it.
Yeah.
And then get off it.
And then get off it. That's good.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad you remember
You
that.
say that. You say that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us, Deborah, you were a very young girl when you were going through all of this.
Yeah.
How was that growing up for you? I know you were 16 and you got your first job in a factory. And what
Yeah.
happened?
Well, let's see, at 16, I actually was going to a continuation school in the morning and attending college classes in the afternoon, going to psych classes. That was kind of the thing back then.
Yeah.
And I looked for my first job. I was right around 16. And, you know, like many things, I knew it would be a little tougher for me. And the jobs that were available at 16 mostly were very out in the public. You know, a waitress, a secretary, a receptionist.
You couldn't get hired for those.
Nothing out in the public. And you know, when you look at someone's eyes, I'm not the only one who experiences this. You go in and you see in their eyes, no way, they're not going to hire you. Well, I just saw that over and over and realized they are not hiring somebody who looks like me to be out in the public. And I did get a job in a factory and realized, oh boy, I'm not going to do this for the rest of my life. I am going to, you know, no matter what, be able to go in and look at a, you know, person and get hired.
Yeah.
So,
So there was like a defining moment in that experience for you where you just said, no more.
It was one of many defining moments, but that was a good one, yeah.
That was a good one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and just knowing that I was going to, get a degree and be able to take a resume in and be somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, and so you have.
Yeah.
Now, your interest in sexuality and sensuality started really young. You were just a young girl when you started getting into your body.
Yeah.
Now, do you think that was just like a direct result of having had the disability, or was it because your father loved you so much and your mom thought you were beautiful?
I think it's kind of twofold. I really believe that you're born with certain talents, and I've often shared with you that I think people are born with a talent for art, or we heard Pilar sing. She was definitely born with a talent for a voice, and she fostered that. And I really believe I was born with just a capacity to love myself and my body. And then being raised in the family I was raised in, added to that. I remember always being told that I was pretty, by both my parents. But as a girl, it was almost more important to hear it from my dad.
Wow.
And to hear it in a way that was non-threatening.
Yeah.
He would even say to me, "Oh, you got sexy legs or sexy arms, or you're so pretty." And I never related it. I mean, I just felt pretty. I wasn't scared or anything,
Yeah.
And
But that's where the courage came from. Because you weren't scared anymore.
Yeah. I think of the women of courage, and I think, what is the most courageous thing that I have? I mean, I ask my clients that. Where do you get your courage? How do you have it? And in some ways, you get courage because you're afraid. And to overcome it, you have courage. And, people project onto me that I must be very brave to live in this body.
Right.
And I think, well, not really.
But
that
you're in
part's
pain some
been
of the time,
easy.
Deborah. I mean, you do. I mean, let's tell the truth. You are.
Yeah. And that, that's a drag. And it's a drag to be stared at, even as an adult.
Do people still stare at you?
Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But, the real courage is to be your own true magnificence, Jan. That is what takes courage, is to really stand up and say, I am somebody, and I want to be somebody, and I can be. And really, that's the courage. That's the magnificence. And to really say, we are that.
What would you like to say to your granddaughter? Because one day we hope that she'll see the reruns of this show.
Yeah, wouldn't that be funny? Oh, my God. Well, I think for all my children, actually, like I carry my parents around on my shoulder, I want them to carry me around on their shoulder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
And that just brings tears to my eyes, too. Yeah, because if she can always hear my voice saying how beautiful and how perfect she is, I would love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, she's off to a good start.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you.
Thank you for being the woman you are.
Thanks.
Like Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, Mary Ellen King grew up in Kansas. Instead of red slippers, her flying experience came with an airline. And for 30 years, she smiled, served, and kept her sense of humor across 7 continents. Mary Ellen's journey changed a course a year ago with a diagnosis of metastatic breast cancer and a deep knowing that it was time to reunite with her daughter, whom she placed for adoption at birth. Today, she has a clean bill of health, and she has Katie, who at 31 is the mother of 5 children and is making her way as a single mom on the outskirts of Boston. Last month, Katie got up the courage to file a restraining order against her husband and end a cycle of violence and abuse. Katie, thank you so much for coming all the way from Boston to do this show with your mom. Very special to have you here.
Thank you. Yes, it is.
Mary Ellen, I want to know from you what reuniting with Katie did for your recovery from breast cancer. How did that make a difference?
It's actually made a huge difference. We actually met about 12 years ago. I found her through an agency and have had very little contact since then. And what this cancer has brought me face to face with my own mortality. And with that, it's like what I've gotten out of the huge gift that I've gotten from this is how important relationship is. It's like that's all there is relationship, love, connection with loved ones. And I just have to say this part.
Go ahead.
It was a year and a half ago when I went back to Boston to see her.
She ambushed her.
She ambushed you.
I did. And it was like, somehow or other, I needed to convey the message. It's like, I have a terminal illness. What are we waiting for?
Yeah. So what did you say, Katie, when she said that to you? Because you know you had been pretty resistant to your mama being back in your life.
Well, she didn't say that to me. She said, "Oh, I'll come out and we'll have our hair done and just have fun and relax." Then sat down to breakfast, and it was kind of like, I could die soon. So it was kind of a, it was kind of thrown at me.
Yeah.
It was, at first it was kind of overwhelming because I wasn't expecting it.
Yeah. So, but it was kind of like
But it worked.
a wake-up call for you, too,
Yeah.
to actually take your own life in your own hands, wasn't it?
Hmm.
Yeah. And is that what happened? Did Mary Ellen inspire you to do that?
Oh, yeah.
You two look so much alike. It's so great. You know, Mary Ellen, I know that when you were recovering from cancer, actually when you were in the throes of, you had 2 diagnoses with breast cancer and 1 bone marrow transplant. And I know that what got you through, and I think it's really important we say this, was your community of friends. I know that you went through a financial breakdown. What do you do when you're sick and you need help and you're not working? So tell our audience what you did to get yourself through this.
Well, the thing that just brings tears to my eyes every time I even think about it was I had a council of friends, and we met after I got the news that it was either a bone marrow transplant or you're going to die of breast cancer. And they had given me a list of page after page of all the drugs that they were going to feed me while I was in the hospital, and all of the possible side effects, from brain damage to heart damage to even death. I mean, there was a 5% chance that I would die in the hospital from the therapy. And I said to my friends last night, some of whom are here and have brought me through all of this, if I'm going to die in the hospital, I want somebody I love holding my hand. And that night, they started a sign-up sheet. And there was somebody in the hospital with me every minute of almost 4 weeks, holding my hand, watching me throw up, get oxygen, and be completely drugged. And it was so healing. I mean, it's like, I know that that's one of the major gifts that brought me through, that this literally saved my life.
And you recovered to be with Katie. And here she is, all the way from Boston. Katie, 5 children. How in the world have you managed 5 children? And you're, what, 31?
Yeah.
Tell us.
I don't know how I've managed 5 children. I've had a lot of help more recently, more emotionally than physically. Like, I don't have people in my everyday life always helping and babysitting and things like that. But especially in the last year and a half, the emotional support I've gotten has just, I mean, even just getting a letter in the mail, you know, whether it be, you know, from you or from anyone, it makes my whole day when I run to the mailbox and there's mail. And it just really keeps me going. And I mean, my kids are fantastic.
And you asked your husband to leave just about a month ago, didn't you? Like it was time. You said, I need to do this on my own.
Yeah, well, we've been kind of going back and forth for almost 2 years,
Yeah.
but it got to the point where I would have rather been on my own. Even if he were with the kids, I'd rather him be alone with the kids than us be with the kids together, because it was so horrible for the kids to see us together.
Yeah.
It was so hard
He
for
was
them.
pretty abusive.
It was, especially emotionally, and for the kids to see their mom and dad and want to pick sides and say,
Yeah.
stop fighting, it was horrible for them.
So anything you want to say to single moms out there making it on their own before we close out this segment, and the difference that the two of you have made in your lives for each other? Any final words?
I just wanted to say that since she's been in my life, it's the first time in my life, and I have a hard time with it, but that I've actually been able to allow people to help me and to think that I deserve it. And it's the only way I've been able to get through this, is to know that asking for help is okay.
Yeah.
And just because somebody gives me something doesn't mean I have to pay them back or whatever. I can, you know, send them a letter or say thank you, and sometimes that's enough. And that's what really brought me through it.
And your mom modeled that for you.
Yeah.
She did.
That was the key ingredient in my whole process, was really surrendering and allowing myself to receive.
Yeah, yeah. Well, keep surrendering, honey. We're going to all be here to give to you from now on in.
Thank you.
Mary Ellen King, Katie Brierly, thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you, Jan, for doing this.
You are women of courage. Austin Thurber is our erstwhile correspondent who has taken to the streets to talk to passers-by in our closing segment on Women of Courage called Women Like Us. So Austin, I just want to know before we see this footage, what was that like for you?
It was so fun. I got to talk to all these amazing women, and at first I thought, well, maybe everyone isn't a woman of courage. I would need to sort somehow. But I realized that we really all are, and we all have an amazing and incredible story, and it was totally fun to just be that intimate with women. They were all very willing to share their stories, and I just loved it.
Did you learn something from it?
I learned that I also am a woman of courage,
Yeah, that's what
which I had never really considered before.
Yes, and indeed you are. Thank you for being part of this television show.
My pleasure.
And now let's take a look at Women Like Us.
What would you say, of all the things and all the places you've been courageous, what is the one that comes to mind?
The one that comes to mind is actually a period of time for me where I made the choice to find my birth mother. And at the same time, I was in a new relationship, and that all came before the decision to find my birth father. So one led into the other, and it was a time where everything was hitting me from all directions, and feeling this great sense of abandonment, not only from my parents, but the world and spirit. So somehow I had the courage to hold on to some thread inside myself that I'm loved and I'm worthy, and I just had to keep moving through these different layers of where I thought I wasn't loved, or where I felt unworthy. So that was a period of time where, in reflection, now when I look back, I had immense courage to choose to go through those experiences in the face of rejection. It was a great risk, and new life was created from that risk.
What would you say, given the world that we live in today, is maybe most wanted or needed, or for young people in the way, like what kind of courage do they need? What could you recommend for them?
Well, I would suggest young people finding mentors and people that are doing what they want to do and saying what they want to say, and being in partnership with them so they can get heard, and also having the adults in their lives hear them and create something beyond the stereotypes that teenagers have, or young people.
The late Bella Abzug was one of the guests on our radio show, Women of Courage. And when I asked her what took the most courage in her life, she said, "It takes courage to say who you are and to say how you want to live." So on Bella's behalf, I invite you to speak up and to tell your truth and to break the silence and form Women of Courage circles right in your own living room with your friends. When we do this, we can actually catalyze positive change within ourselves and empower each other. For more information on Women of Courage circles, contact womenofcourage.net. Until next time, take heart and keep the faith. I'm Jan St. John. Thank you for joining us.